and a very warm welcome to Hashtag Talent and Talks, the Talent Mindset Dialogue series brought to you by the Economic Times in collaboration with LinkedIn. I'm Himanshi Tiwari, and today we are diving into the evolving heart of the workplace, the people who drive it. Now, think about it. We've seen workplace dynamics shift from the traditional 9 to 5 to a more flexible, tech driven powerhouse where agility and skill building are not just perks but necessities. Now, gone are the days of simply filling a role. It's all about fueling a future ready workforce. So, together with LinkedIn, the Economic Times brings you exclusive insights straight from industry frontrunners. And in this episode with Prasad Menon, Global Chief People Officer at Amagi Corporation, and Anoop Shashidharan, Head of Growth Account South Talent and Learning Solutions at LinkedIn Talent Solutions, we will unpack what it takes to build a resilient, skilled workforce in this transformative age. So, whether you are leading a team, stepping into new roles, or gearing up for tomorrow's challenges, let's explore how talent is no longer just a resource. It's the core of a thriving, future-focused business. So thank you both for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you both.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manshi.
Now over to you, Anoop, for the fireside chat.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Prasad, thank you so much for taking this time. Really appreciate it. And it's wonderful to be having this conversation with you. I was reading a bit about Amagi, and clearly, right, like there's a lot of fantastic things that's happening. The kind of growth that the organization has seen, there are a lot of IPO kind of conversations that are happening as well. So one of the key areas that I want to kind of touch upon today was around the talent mindset, right? While there's so much of focus on innovation and you're striving to become like the best in the world as an organization, what does actually talent mindset mean to you, Prasad? And how do you kind of work towards prioritizing that within your teams, right? To drive this growth and innovations? Would love to know that from you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Anoop, for having me over. And it's a great question. So I think finding a great talent is good, but ultimately it's the belief system and the way of working that actually truly makes it a great, from good to great. And when you are able to do all that through a cohort of great talent coming together with a belief system, then it becomes a force multiplier as a tribe. So talent is just a spark, but the mindset that you set is really what turns that spark into a lasting fire. So for Amagi, and we'll come a little bit into what we do in 1-2 lines, but for an organization like Amagi, innovation is not something that is in the fringes, not even the fringes. For everybody, innovation is the core center, but it's not something that we think about that you need to do and keep up with. It is actually a very baseline essence of our existence. So it is not something that we need to do. If without doing that, we don't exist. I should probably go back to telling you why I joined Amagi. It's been 2.5 years. And when I was first exploring this opportunity with Amagi, 2 things that really stood out for me was, one was the ticket size of ambition that Amagi had. The mission for Amagi was clearly very big, ensuring that we are in the media space, we are in a B2B business, we are a vertical SaaS company. And imagine, and we have spent this is the 15th year in run. We started in India, humble beginnings from here, but today we are not very headcount intensive. We are about 850 odd people globally, but we deliver to 115 countries. We have more than 20 different nationalities. So we are today a global organization. And what we really do in the B2B space, we are in the intersection between broadcasters, content creators, and advertisers. What we really try to do is that, every a single content provider can enjoy frictionless distribution of their content to any platform that they choose. And platforms are able to access limitless possibilities of content from whichever content provider that they choose. And advertisers are able to have targeted reach and content and audience that they want to access and provide for. So clearly, it's at doing this at a global level is a huge, huge ambition. So the ticket size of ambition stood out. Second thing that stood out for me is Amagi itself. Amagi in Sumerian actually means and symbolizes freedom. So you'll find that most of the corporates talk about empowerment, but they don't talk about freedom. I think it's kind of ingrained because somebody said that, if you give freedom to human beings, they become irresponsible. Actually, there are literatures and papers that are written, um, and you'll find it on social media, on the internet, why human beings should not be given freedom at workplace, but empowerment. We don't believe in that. We believe that you have a larger purpose. You give freedom to human beings, and they will produce the best of what they can do with all the capabilities that they have in their lifetime. Now, if you combine both of this, then the combination is how do you really build a world-class media tech organization on foundation of goodness? So that was a very, very unique driving factor that even got me to Amagi. And I said that this has not been done earlier. And at this scale, in a very, very niche space, even if I have to fail, it'll be my own becoming. I'm still journeying on it. So I want to kind of lay that out in terms of, the purpose, the ticket size of ambition, and the means of how we are thinking about doing it is unique, and which is why I am here, and which is why every Amagian has been a part and are working to fulfill this mission every day. I'm happy to share that the recent Olympics that was live telecast was actually brought to this world by Amagi. 17 days in the largest platform, the most viewed event in the world. And imagining doing all that, which was traditionally done through the traditional broadcasting on the cloud using software with latency of just about 2 seconds, right? That is the power of what technology can do. And that's the power of what technology can do to transform the industry. So I think this is what drives us, keeps us, and the whole can-do attitude with a positive outlook to taking on challenges is what keeps us going. I'm humbled that this year we also won the Tech Emmy Award. You'll understand that Tech Emmy is like the Oscars for tech. This is the second year in a row that Amagi is getting it. We don't do too much of tom-tom, and we're quite humble. We're very introverted as an organization. We are focused on solving for the next challenge, and that's really what keeps us going.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Prasad. And I'm glad you brought out the Olympic story. I wasn't sure if I should be talking about it, but I'm glad you did. And I know for a lot of people who are going to be listening to this, they'll be like, oh wow, was it on this platform? So fantastic, right? And I love the piece around freedom. I think that's a very powerful one that you mentioned. I think I kind of resonate with that as well. I think when you give people the freedom to work, they always bring their best to the table. At least I believe in that. I very, honestly resonate with some of the things that you mentioned here. Perfect. Now, that also leads us, and one of the things that you spoke about is, Anoop, now we become global, right? And you spoke about how we started in India, and now you're like a 800-member organization globally. So I'm just curious to know, like, as in when you scale across geographies and as you keep growing, how do you kind of get tech companies can attract a diverse pool of talent, or across the globe, right? Like, and also the follow-up would be, do you use some kind of data and insights to give you that kind of information in terms of the tech talent availability and so on and so forth? Because I feel that's something that a lot of companies struggle with today.
No, I think great question, Anoop, and you touched upon scale. I'm smiling because it's the biggest challenge is to scale. So when we were 50, everybody got it. When you're 100, everybody got the culture. But beyond 100, you realize that it can't be just founders leading the way or the leadership leading the way. You have to have a mechanism to scale. So what works at scale is very different from scaling what works. So and in our organization, if you mess the culture, I can tell you that it's very talented set of folks. That's the day you can't. Your talent will definitely, you'll not hold the loyalty or the commitment or the tribal nature of what you hold. So I'll probably answer this more in our context, and three things to, in common sensically, I feel laid down. Why do people work for you? I think it's important to start there, right? I think, see, if people love what they do, because if you have to think about how you have to scale talent, etc., especially in the technology industry, I think there are three things. One, they need to love what they do. For a techie, what you do has to be meaningful. It should excite them. Second is you should enjoy whom you're doing with. And third is what you built has to make a difference. So the first thing is our own space of media tech is quite niche. A lot of it is proprietary in nature. You don't get people out there who know it all. And even there in the space, we're trying to be quite a lot in the ecosystem space, because the media tech itself has got a lot of products and a lot of verticals. Now, we are trying to be like what do you say, an ecosystem between the broadcasters, between the content creators and the advertisers, right? So there's a lot of context that actually comes there. So I think the first thing is really about holding on to your purpose, your quality of work, and the tribe that you have. So I want to kind of lay that out. That's a very foundational thing in attracting talent. When we had to go global, and when we go into a particular region, then the first thing that attracts them is actually focused on some of these aspects, and you need to get that right. Second thing is, before we think of looking at talent outside, my big belief is that you leverage the flywheel really is within your organization, your existing talent who are spending time with you. See, for example, in Amagi's context, I shared with you that it's a 15-year journey. You contextualize this 15-year journey. I shared with you we are about 850 people. Now, most of 70% of that talent was hired during the COVID period. We had about 10x growth. We threw the kitchen sink at the problem. We had so 70% of that talent really is about 3 to 4 years old. Yet in our 15-year journey, it's kind of humbling to see. Actually, this month end, we are doing something called as Lighthouse Awards. It's like a little Oscars with the organization. We have 5 people who have completed 15 years. We have 25 people who have completed 10 years, and we have 100 people who have completed 5 years with the organization. So there is a stickiness to these folks, and we truly call them as lighthouses, because in the proprietary industry, with a DNA that you have and you have built, these are central forces and lighthouses that actually go about how you attract talent, how you onboard them, and their energies and vibrations on the platforms, on people in the regions. They have a remarkable effect in enrolling and inspiring rest of the people to be a part of the tribe, and the right set of people. So I think 3 things that I want to leave with. So my belief is, if you focus on the people, on the purpose, and strategic talent development, it really helps. Two examples as well, right? We have to understand that your strategy for how you want to go about your strategic talent strategy of how you want to attract talent has to start with what kind of a business you are, what is the landscape of the talent ecosystem, which is where we have to use data. And LinkedIn, for example, is a very, very powerful source of that data. 2 examples that I can give you is, we, in our growth path, so most of the product was built in India, but our go-to market is actually the world. The largest market is the US and North America. 80% of our revenues come from that market. And if you take media tech industry, typically the North Star of that market where new trends, new evolutions happen and sets the trend is really North America. However, we are in the last couple of years, we also have a beautiful Eastern Europe center of excellence, both in Poland and Croatia, that have emerged. Why? Because media technology talent is very niche, and Eastern Europe have a very, very good set of talent in the media tech space. And we have gone there, we have experimented, and today it's humbling to see that these two centers have fully owned product. And they were acquisitions that we started out and we did. And Amagi is able to go to those places and give the local talent the opportunity to make a difference to the worldwide media tech talent. And it's a beautiful synergistic relationship. So that's one example. The second thing for us also is how you cross-pollinate. A lot of our talent, we cross-pollinate. So we take, somebody would have been a techie who started the career in India. They've grown within the organization, and we typically rotate them either into a tech role or a product role, and many of them in a frontline revenue sales role today, because they bring that IP, they bring that knowledge, and the rotation in different markets has been very powerful for them and for that region, because these are all people who carry the context and DNA of the organization. It has a rub-off effect in those regions as you attract talent, and the way of what we call as the Amagi way. So these are some examples, and these strategies are important to develop in context of your organization and what they do and the talent ecosystem. And that's where the data and the insights are extremely powerful to listen, understand, and then respond.
No, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Prasad. I think the Eastern European story, I think, has been pretty strong over the past few years. And I think it only goes to show that it's getting better, right? I think a lot of the companies have focus on the Eastern European talent as well. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. The other part to this would be, hey, today with a lot of the GCC setup coming in India and tech talent being of high priority for a lot of companies, right? How do you look at from a talent attraction perspective, right? What are some of the things that you are doing to create a stickiness factor about your brand, right? And secondly, what is your opinion about like taking the share of voice out to the market? What are your thoughts on that, right? Like building out an EVP or a share of voice to a talent community that is extremely competitive with multiple organizations looking at the same talent. Would love to hear from you. What are some of your thoughts on this?
I think, so see, it's a highly competitive market, Anoop, and establishing a distinct voice is not just about standing out, but it's important that it resonates deeply with the right set of talent that you're trying to attract. And I always believe that if the why is very powerful, then the how becomes easy. And that's a very important thing to take about it. So if your purpose is very powerful, then the way about everything else that you go about doing it becomes 1 step, 3 step actually easier. Your purpose also has to be to build a brand. I believe in two things, right? Once you see that your purpose is all about, it's a huge ticket size of ambition. It has the power to transform a sector, an industry, a space, or a community. It's not just about yourself. Then it's a huge draw, because everybody is drawn to a higher purpose, and purpose is a very, very powerful underlining. I think the work for building any brand should start with that purpose. And once you do that, and that way to think about doing the purpose is also to ensure that it is trustworthy and it is authentic. And I'm being very, very careful about these two things. Otherwise, you're going to be a brand that lives on the walls. But if there is no authenticity, or there is no trust that you can build under what you say, what you will do, then you're not going to build a sustainable brand. You will only make a flash, but you will not be able to really build a long-term sustainable brand.
Thank you so much for that. I think one of the largest point of discussion has been the onset of AI. I think whatever community that we are talking to today across leaders has been around the onset of AI and what is each organization doing towards this, right? How are you from a L&D perspective looking at equipping your team to be future ready from an AI perspective? Or what are some of the L&D initiatives that you all are doing to kind of, get ready for this change or for this on this journey?
See, I'll probably give an example too. But first, to foundationally lay out, it's our belief that, see, everything that you lead in an organization on growth trajectory has to be led by your leadership. There's something called as talent density. You get, if you have 15-20% of the talent who are future ready, and that future ready definition is not just potential, but they are immersed in your culture, then you're building a sustainable organization. No amount of money can solve when you go through changes and you don't have this talent readily for you. The reality is it's like a bus. People are going to get in, people are going to get off. But this is a space, and an organization like Amagi, it's an industry that we need to continue for several decades. And media has always been there in the past. Media will always be there in the future. So our belief system on leadership itself is that leadership emerges from anywhere. It's not a title, it's not a role. Any wake, any person can be a leader. And the foundation of our leadership is a very servant leadership model. And our existence has to be to serve others. So if you go deep down granular into how we have written our credo, we say that, you should be the last person talking in a meeting. And we tell it very, very explicitly. A leader has to be an integrative thinker. So you can come in, you can have multiple forces of opinions and often in contradiction with each other. And your responsibility is to see that you're able to conjoin all these ideas, make, let's say, a khichdi out of it, maybe. The final one that is coming is probably a sum total of this idea, but also ensuring that all the emotion and balance is kept so that there is an outcome and not an impasse. So it's important to set your belief systems, your North Star, and that should kind of drive everything on your learning culture. Now, that's our North Star. And our learning culture is pivoted on three aspects. It is basically experience, education, and exposure. So that's the three pivots that we focus on. Experience is really what we focus on, what people do on their work. How do you enrich somebody's work? How I gave you an earlier example, how do you rotate somebody's work, or somebody's doing something more deeper? And we believe that 70% of everything is what you learn in every day that you do. And you have to create opportunities for people around what they do every day. Your best learning comes from there. The second is it's important to nurture. So our education, where we probably nurture on getting cohorts together or individuals together to give them perspectives on storytelling or coaching. Here is where they learn the chops, your skills. The third is exposure. So if you learn the skills and chops, what use is it if it cannot serve? You're not giving platforms to practice. So exposure focuses on, if you learned a skill, how do you give exposure? Just as an analogy, suppose you do the storytelling workshop. These are the folks, the workshop will have their own case studies that you bring in, but then you will convert that into stories that you will have within the organization. And then you give platforms and fireside chats like this for those individuals to share their story with the larger Amagians in the organization. So everything is also usually designed to serve a purpose of within the ecosystem and how our growth and how our trajectory needs to actually take shape. So those are the three pivots that we do. Another interesting case study for us to share with you using AI itself is, see, if we have to think, you'd have shared that, of course, we're doing a lot of work in building AI into media tech products. But if you want to build a mindset towards that, you'll also have to build a culture internally that lives on it. It cannot be just in the fringes of your product development that this work is happening. Culturally, you need to kind of embed that within your organization. And I'm going back to foundational root. I think what is important for L&D or our existence itself is, how do you intentionally listen? How do you understand? How do you respond? And how do you act? There are four things. So even for us, the way we have done that is we we use what is called as a CLO. We have a chief listening officer within the organization, which is actually an AI bot. And what we wanted to really problem solve was, how do you, we have a global workforce. I have somebody waking up in Australia. Maybe there are only 3 people out there. I don't know how they're feeling today, and mood and happenings are not a one-time event that you can do in an annual survey. You have to continuously listen. But what good is it? So you have a mechanism to continue listen. So we use the bot. It's positioned as a CLO. It's an executive board member for us. And both Bhaskar and I have access, and we are committed to listening. And we go through every single conversation within the organization. Since its launch in January, we have had over 510 conversations that was mooted in the organization. There is no retribution, any questions welcome. But we also have SLAs in terms of not just capturing the mood score, because we want to build the happiest workplace in the world. So if you want to build a happiest workplace in the world, your baseline measure also should be on happiness, which is our mood score. But we go down to classifying this through using technology as who are the people who are doing well, who are the people at risk. We make sure that in 15 days, that's our SLA, that every single issue that a person has gets resolved. It need not necessarily being saying yes to them. Sometimes you have to coach the individual. Sometimes listening is a very powerful tool to do that. But boy, this 510 conversations have given us insights continuously into where we are doing well, where we need to improve. So all our learning trajectories and interventions happen from where we need to get better. And these are able to also give us color in terms of regional nuances, team-wise nuances, change management that would have happened and the impact of it, so that we are able to point our learning strategies and interventions far more meaningfully.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Prasad. Thank you again for taking the time and being such a, for engaging in such a conversation with us. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much again.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me over here. Sometimes it's moments like this that kind of give you knocks to put your head to do a little bit of reflection, because sometimes, when you do what you do every day, it is through these moments you slightly put your head up and then see, what did we do well and what we need to work. In fact, even today, I would probably be walking back with few things in my mind that I think we need to work better, improve better, or leverage. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me over and giving me an opportunity to share. I hope some of the things that we discussed here can serve a perspective for somebody else, and my deed is done.
So thank you for those case studies and examples, Prasad. And thank you, gentlemen, for this enriching session. And to our audience, there you have it, insights and strategies from those at the forefront of today's talent landscape. As we navigate this complex tech-powered world of work, it's clear that a strong talent mindset isn't just an asset, it's a competitive advantage. We hope you're walking away with fresh perspectives like we are on building, branding, and developing a workforce that's as dynamic as the challenges it faces. So thank you for tuning into hashtag Talent and Talks, and here's to a more agile, innovative, and inclusive future together.